Hey everyone, hope you're doing great. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we'll dive into what if Deku became the cyber hero prototype. Smash that subscribe button, and be sure to peek at the description below. Let's begin. The world was not built for the weak. This was the first lesson Izuku Midoriya ever learned, etched into his psyche before he could even recite the multiplication table. It was a lesson taught by the silence of a doctor's office, the pitying glances of his mother, and the explosive cruelty of his childhood friend. In a superhuman society, where 80% of the population possessed a quirk, the abnormal became the normal. To be powerless was to be vestigial, a biological error, a remnant of a bygone era that evolution was trying desperately to scrub away. Izuku sat at his desk, his shoulders hunched, trying to make himself as small as possible. The afternoon sun filtered through the windows of Aldera Junior High, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. It was a peaceful scene, starkly contrasted by the tension radiating from the boy in the seat in front of him. So, as third-year students, it's time to start thinking seriously about your futures and what you want to do with your lives, the teacher announced, holding a stack of career aptitude forms. He paused, a smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth. I could pass out these printouts, but why bother? I know you all want to go into the hero track. The class erupted. Cheers, shouts, and the activation of a dozen minor quirks filled the room. Hands stretched, eyes glowed, and objects floated. It was a display of individuality, of power. Izuku kept his head down, his hand trembling as he raised it halfway, a silent, desperate admission of his own impossible dream. Yes, you've all got some impressive quirks, the teacher continued, waving a hand dismissively. But use of powers at school is against the rules, so settle down. Hey, teach! The voice cut through the noise like a whip crack. Katsuki Bakugo leaned back in his chair, his feet resting on his desk with an arrogance that felt earned, terrifyingly enough. Don't lump me in with these losers. As if I have anything in common with a bunch of extras who'll be lucky to end up as sidekicks to some busted D-lister. The class roared in outrage, but Bakugo just sneered, small explosions popping in his palms. Shut up. I'm aiming for the top. I'm going to surpass All Might and become the richest, most famous hero of all time. Oh, that's right, the teacher mused, checking his clipboard. Bakugo, you're aiming for UA High, aren't you? The silence that followed was heavy with awe. UA was the fortress of dreams, the training ground of legends. It had a 0.2% acceptance rate. It was impossible, and the teacher's eyes slid over the list, landing on a name that made him sigh. Midoriya, you're applying for UA too, right? The silence shattered. It wasn't all this time. It was laughter. Derisive, howling laughter that seemed to come from the walls themselves. Izuku flinched as if struck physically. Midoriya? No way. You can't get into the hero course just by studying. They got rid of that rule, sure, but you're quirkless. Izuku stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. They got rid of that rule. There's no precedent, but that doesn't mean I can't. Boom. Bakugo was there in an instant, his hand slamming onto Izuku's desk. The force of the explosion blew Izuku backward, sending him tumbling to the floor. Smoke curled from the blackened wood of the desk. Hey, Deku! Bakugo loomed over him, his red eyes burning with a mixture of rage and confusion. You're below the rejects. You're quirkless. How can you even stand in the same ring as me? No, wait, Kaken! Izuku scrambled back, his back hitting the chalkboard. It's not like I'm trying to compete with you or anything. Believe me. It's been my dream since I was little. And, well, I won't know unless I try. Try? Bakugo's voice dropped to a growl. Smoke poured from his palms. Try what? The entrance exam? You're going to take the exam just to fail? What can you even do? You're nothing. You're a pebble on the side of the road. The class watched, amused. This was the natural order. The strong predator toying with the weak prey. The rest of the day was a blur of humiliation. By the time the final bell rang, Izuku felt hollowed out. He packed his bag slowly, his eyes lingering on his hero analysis for the future number 13 notebook. It was his lifeline, his only connection to the world he desperately wanted to join. As he reached for it, A hand snatched it away. We're not done talking yet, Deku. Bakugo stood there, flanked by his two lackeys. He held the notebook up, reading the title. Hero Analysis for the Future? Seriously? Give it back, Kaken, please. Bakugo clapped his hands together, the notebook sandwiching an explosion. No! Izuku cried out. Bakugo tossed the charred, smoking remains of the notebook out the open window. Izuku watched it fall, his heart sinking into the pit of his stomach. It landed in the koi pond below, fish beginning to nibble at the burnt paper. Most top-tier heroes have stories about them from their school days, Bakugo said, his voice eerily calm. I want my origin story to be perfect. I want to be the only one from this crappy junior high to make it to UA. It's a ego thing, you know? He placed a hand on Izuku's shoulder. It was warm, threatening to ignite. So here's a word of advice. Don't apply to UA, nerd. Bakugo turned to leave, his lackeys snickering behind him. Izuku stood there, frozen, his fists clenched at his sides but refusing to move. He was shaking. Why couldn't he move? Why couldn't he say anything? At the door, Bakugo stopped. He glanced back, a cruel idea forming in his mind. You know, if you want to be a hero that badly, there might be another way. Izuku looked up, hope warring with fear in his eyes. Take a swan dive off the roof of the building, Bakugo sneered, and pray you'll be born with a quirk in your next life. The words hung in the air, toxic and heavy. Izuku whipped around, anger finally sparking in his chest, but Bakugo just popped a few small explosions in his hand. Yeah? You got something to say? Izuku shrank back. The spark died. He said nothing. The walk home was a trudge through misery. The city felt gray, the sounds of traffic muffled by the ringing in Izuku's ears. Swan dive. The words repeated on a loop. Idiot, Izuku muttered to himself, forcing a laugh that sounded more like a sob. If I actually did that, it'd be inciting suicide. You could get arrested, Kaken. He stopped by the koi pond to fish out his notebook. It was soggy, half-eaten, and smelled of pond scum. Stupid fish, he whispered, wiping the grime off the cover. This isn't food. He clutched the book to his chest and kept walking. He needed to get home. He needed to wash the day off. He needed to pretend that he was fine, that his dreams weren't turning into nightmares. To avoid the crowds, he took the shortcut under the bridge. It was a long, cylindrical tunnel, shadowed and damp. The acoustics amplified his footsteps, making him sound louder, stronger than he was. I just have to ignore him, Izuku murmured, stepping into the gloom. I just have to keep looking forward. UA. I can still. A sound came from the manhole cover behind him. A wet, squelching noise. Izuku turned. Liquid green sludge erupted from the grate, swelling and rising like a tidal wave of sewage. It formed a towering mass, two yellow eyes floating in the viscosity, followed by a gaping maw filled with liquid teeth. A villain? Izuku gasped, stumbling back. A medium-sized invisibility cloak. The villain hissed, his voice gurgling. Perfect. Before Izuku could run, before he could even scream, the sludge lunged. It hit him with the force of a truck. Cold, slimy fluid enveloped him, rushing into his nose, his mouth, forcing its way down his throat. Don't worry, the villain whispered right into his ear, the voice vibrating through Izuku's skull. I'm just going to take over your body. It'll only hurt for about 45 seconds. Then, it'll all be over. Izuku clawed at the liquid, his fingers sinking uselessly into the muck. He couldn't breathe. He couldn't see. The world was green and suffocating. I can't breathe. I can't. You can't grab me, the villain taunted. I'm fluid. Thanks for the help, kid. You're a real lifesaver. I didn't think All Might was in town. All Might? Izuku's vision began to spot. Panic, raw and primal, flooded his system. He was dying. He was going to die here, in a sewer tunnel, murdered by a random villain, leaving behind nothing but a wet notebook and a grieving mother. No. No! Someone, help! His strength was fading. His lungs burned like fire. The villain was forcing himself inside, expanding, crushing Izuku's organs to make room. I'm dying. And then, something snapped. It wasn't a thought. It wasn't a decision. It was deeper than that. Deep inside the double helix of Izuku Midoriya's DNA, buried under 14 years of dormancy, a sequence unlocked. It was an ancient, terrible code. A biological anomaly that had skipped 3 generations, a mutation so aggressive and so alien that it had been theorized only in the darkest, most redacted files of the government's science division. It wasn't a quirk. It was a plague. The black light sequence detected the imminent cessation of life functions. Host integrity, critical. Oxygen levels, critical. Threat detected, biological intrusion. Protocol engage. The change didn't happen with a flash of light or a burst of wind. It happened in the blood. Deep within Izuku's veins, his red blood cells violently ruptured and reformed. They turned a dark, obsidian black with streaks of violent crimson. The virus woke up hungry. It woke up angry. Stop struggling, kid, the sludge villain grumbled. Just die already. Suddenly the villain paused. The body inside him, it was getting hot, not warm. Hot. Izuku's eyes snapped open. The green irises were gone, replaced by a glowing, predatory red that cut through the sludge. A agonizing scream ripped from Izuku's throat, but it was muffled by the villain. It was the sound of anatomy being rewritten in real time. Bones fractured and fused instantly. Muscles tore and reknit with fibers 10 times denser than steel. What the hell? The villain recoiled. What are you doing? Black tendrils burst from Izuku's back. They weren't shadows like the hero Dark Shadow. They were physical. They were wet, glistening, erratic masses of biomass, red and black muscular cords that whipped through the air with the sound of cracking whips. Thwack! One tendril pierced the concrete ceiling of the tunnel, anchoring Izuku. Squelch! Another tendril shot forward, not through the sludge, but into it. Gah! The sludge villain shrieked. What is this? It burns! It burns! Izuku wasn't controlling it. He was a passenger in his own exploding body. He felt a hunger that eclipsed the need for air. His cells were screaming for mass. They needed fuel to complete the metamorphosis, and there was a feast surrounding him. The tendrils pulsed. The black virus began to leach into the green sludge. Get off! Get off! The villain tried to pull away, to expel the boy, but he couldn't. He was stuck. The boy's skin had become adhesive, millions of microscopic hooks latching onto the fluid villain. Izuku's right arm convulsed. The skin bubbled and tore as the biomass surged, transforming the limb. The fingers fused, the forearm swelled, and the flesh hardened into a dense, jagged blade of black chitin and red muscle. Adaptation, claws. With a feral roar that sounded like 2 boulders grinding together, Izuku swung his arm. The air pressure alone distorted the tunnel's shape. The clawed hand tore through the villain's fluid body, not just splashing it, but severing the bonds that held the slime together on a molecular level. No! Stop! I'm sorry! Izuku didn't hear him. The virus didn't care about apologies. It only cared about consumption. The black tendrils on Izuku's back flared outward, turning the tunnel into a slaughterhouse web. They lashed out, piercing the scattered globs of sludge. Where they touched, the green slime turned gray, drained of its vitality, its moisture, its very biological essence. The sludge villain's consciousness began to fade, not from suffocation, but from being eaten alive. Suddenly, the manhole cover blasted open. Fear not! A booming voice shook the tunnel, vibrating in the concrete. A massive figure landed, creating a crater in the pavement. For I am he. All Might stopped. The symbol of peace, the man who had seen evils that would make lesser men crumble, froze. He had expected a hostage situation. He had expected to save a boy from a villain. What he saw was a nightmare. The tunnel was painted in black and red. A boy stood in the center, his clothes shredded, his skin pale and covered in shifting, vein-like patterns of black. A massive, blade-like mutation had replaced his right arm. From his back, writhing tentacles pinned pieces of the sludge villain to the walls. The boy was hunched over, panting. Steam rose from his body. The sludge villain was silent, reduced to puddles of gray, lifeless muck. Young man? All Might stepped forward, his smile faltering for the first time in years. Izuku whipped his head around. His eyes were solid red, the pupils slit like a viper's. He looked at All Might, but there was no recognition. Only threat assessment. Target, Unidentified. Threat level, extreme. Status, biomass rich. Izuku hissed, a sound that was entirely inhuman. He crouched, the concrete cracking under his feet. Easy now. All Might raised his hands, sensing the killing intent. I am not your enemy. You are safe. The sound of the hero's voice seemed to pierce the viral haze. Izuku blinked. The red glow in his eyes flickered and faded, returning to a terrified, tear-filled green. The blade arm dissolved into black liquid and retracted, reforming into a normal, albeit scarred, human hand. The tendrils receded into his back with a sickening wet sound. All Might? Izuku croaked. He looked at his hands. They were covered in black slime. He looked at the walls, at the decimated villain. I didn't. Izuku's eyes rolled back into his head. The adrenaline crash was absolute. His body, exhausted by the sudden, violent evolution, shut down. He collapsed forward. All Might moved faster than the eye could track, catching the boy before he hit the ground. The hero looked down at the unconscious teenager. The boy felt incredibly heavy, much heavier than he looked. His skin felt like fever-hot iron. All Might looked at the remains of the villain. The sludge was drying up, turning into dust. What in the world? All Might whispered, the steam rising from his own body as his time limit ticked down. What are you, young man? The void. There is no light here. Only the hum. The double helix unwinds. It screams as it breaks. It sings as it reconnects. You were weak. We fixed that. You were prey. We made you a predator. You were dying. We gave you life. A voice drifted through the darkness. Not a human voice. It was the collective whisper of a billion cells crying out in unison. Feed. Izuku floated in the black ocean. He saw himself, but not himself. He saw a figure cloaked in shadow, walking through a city of fire. He saw tendrils shooting into the sky to pull down helicopters. He saw a blade that could cleave tanks. Is that me? No. That is the prototype. You are the evolution. I don't want to hurt anyone. Irrelevant. Survival is mandatory. The ocean turned red. Chains of code, genetic sequences of AECG, floated past him, but the letters were wrong. They were glowing black. Mercer. Heller. Midoriya. The lineage continues. Muzutafu General Hospital Quarantine Wing. The beeping was annoying. Constant, rhythmic, sharp. Izuku groaned, his eyelids feeling like they were made of lead. He tried to move his arm, but it felt restrained. He's waking up. Dr. Tsubasa, he's waking up. Remarkable. Keep the sedatives ready, just in case. Izuku forced his eyes open. The light was blinding. It hurt his retinas, sharp and stabbing. He squeezed them shut and tried again, slowly. The world came into focus. He was in a hospital room, but it wasn't a normal one. The walls were reinforced glass. There were no flowers, no get-well-soon cards. Just sterile white and sophisticated machinery. He looked down. His arms were strapped to the bed with heavy-duty leather cuffs. Mom? He rasped. His voice sounded deeper, raspier. A speaker on the wall clicked. Izuku? Oh, my baby! Izuku! He turned his head. Beyond the glass wall, Inko Midoriya stood, her hands pressed against the partition. Tears streamed down her face in rivers. Next to her stood a short, heavy-set doctor with thick goggles and a bushy gray mustache. And behind them, Detective Tsukachi. And a skeletal, blond man in an oversized yellow suit. Mom? Why am I tied up? Izuku tugged at the strap. Snap. It wasn't a struggle. He simply moved his arm, and the thick leather cuff snapped like a dry twig. The metal buckle sheared off with a ping. Silence fell over the room. Izuku stared at his free hand. He hadn't used any strength. He had barely twitched. Fascinating, Dr. Tsubasa muttered, scribbling furiously on a clipboard. Bone density appears to be increasing exponentially. Muscle fibers are compressing. He weighs 300 pounds right now, Mrs. Midoriya, despite looking like he weighs 120. What? Inko sobbed. What's wrong with my son? Izuku, the skeletal man spoke. His voice was familiar. Do you remember what happened? Izuku looked at the man. Hollow eyes. Sharp angles. But the presence. All might? Izuku whispered. The man nodded. In my true form. But that is a secret for later. Young man, do you remember the tunnel? The memories crashed into him. The sludge. The suffocation. The voice inside his head. The black tendrils. I killed him. Izuku trembled, clutching his head. The villain. I felt him die. I felt him dissolve. He is alive, the detective interjected smoothly. Barely. He's currently in a secure holding facility. He is diminished. He lost nearly 60% of his body mass. He claims you ate him. Ate him? Izuku's stomach roared. It was a sound like a distorted bass drop. Pain cramped his abdomen. It wasn't normal hunger. It was a void, a black hole opening up in his center. I'm hungry, Izuku gasped. I'm so hungry. We have food prepared. Dr. Tsubasa pressed a button. A slot in the glass wall opened, and a tray slid through. It was piled high with hospital food, rice, fish, soup, vegetables. Izuku broke the other restraints effortlessly. He didn't even notice doing it. He grabbed the tray. He shoveled the rice into his mouth. He didn't chew, he swallowed. The fish followed. The soup. The apple. It was gone in 10 seconds. More, Izuku panted. It tastes like ash. It's not enough. That was 2,000 calories, the doctor noted. His metabolism is running hot. Look at the thermal readings. On a monitor, Izuku's silhouette was glowing white-hot. Izuku, Inko cried out through the glass. Does it hurt? It feels like I'm starving, Mom. Izuku looked at her. Then he froze. His vision shifted. The world turned gray, but Inko was glowing. She was a beacon of orange and yellow light. He could see the heat of her body. He could see the pulse of her heart. He could see the intricate, delicious roadmap of her nervous system. His mouth watered. Consume. Izuku slapped his hands over his eyes, screaming. No! No, shut up! Shut up! Sedate him! The doctor ordered. Gas began to hiss into the room. No! Izuku scrambled back into the corner of the room, curling into a ball. Stay away! Something is wrong with me. Don't come near me. All Might watched with a grim expression. He placed a hand on the glass. Young Midoriya. Listen to me. Izuku looked up, his eyes glowing red again, the veins around his temples pulsing black. You are not a monster, All Might said firmly. We don't know what this power is. It seems your quirk has finally awakened. It is terrifying. It is violent. But you saved yourself. You survived. I wanted to eat my mom, Izuku whispered, the horror evident in his voice. Just now. I looked at her and I saw food. Inko covered her mouth to stifle a sob. Instincts, the doctor said clinically. Predatory instincts. Whatever this mutation is, it places him at the top of the food chain. He will have to learn to control the urges. I can't, Izuku cried. I'm dangerous. Lock me up. Put me in Tartarus. No, All Might said. You wanted to be a hero, didn't you? Izuku stopped breathing for a moment. What? You asked me. Well, you didn't get the chance to ask me, but I saw your notebook. I saw your room when we went to get your ID. You are a fandom. You want to save people. All Might stood up straighter, even in his weak form. A quirk doesn't make a hero, young man. Choices do. You have been dealt a heavy hand. A dark power. But if you can master that hunger, if you can turn that nightmare into a shield, then you can be a hero. Izuku stared at his hands. The skin rippled, turning hard and black for a second before softening again. But what is this? I was quirkless. The doctor said I had the double toe joint. I was quirkless. Dr. Tsubasa adjusted his glasses, hiding the gleam in his eyes. Biology is full of surprises, Midoriya-kun. Perhaps it wasn't that you were quirkless. Perhaps the quirk was just waiting for the right catalyst. A trauma so severe it forced evolution. He tapped the glass. We will run tests. We will figure this out. But for now, you need to calm down. If your heart rate keeps rising, you'll burn through your own energy reserves and start digesting your own organs. Izuku forced himself to breathe. In. Out. He focused on All Might. The symbol of peace wasn't looking at him with disgust. He was looking at him with challenge. Izuku unclenched his fists. I don't want to hurt anyone. Then learn, All Might said. Yuehai starts in 10 months. If you can control this thing, by then, I will personally vouch for your application. It was a lifeline. A thin, fraying rope thrown into the abyss. Izuku nodded slowly. The red in his eyes faded back to green. Okay, he whispered. Okay. As the gas finally took effect and sleep claimed him again, Izuku had one last thought. He remembered the sludge villain. He remembered the feeling of the biomass flowing into him. It hadn't just been energy. He had felt the villain's fear. He had felt the villain's structure. He flexed his fingers. For a split second, his skin turned into green sludge before snapping back to human flesh. Izuku closed his eyes. I'm not corkless anymore, he thought, drifting into the dark. But I don't think I'm human anymore either. Elsewhere, a bar in Kamino, a monitor flickered in the darkness. On the screen, a grainy security feed from the tunnel played. It showed the boy, the black tendrils, the violent consumption of the sludge. A man with a hand covering his face scratched at his neck violently. Sensei, did you see that? Tamura Shigaraki rasped. That brat. He looks like a Nomu. But he's fast. He's pretty. From the speaker, a deep, ancient voice chuckled. All for One spoke. The blacklight strain. I thought that project was destroyed 50 years ago. It seems a dormant carrier escaped the purge. Do we kill him? No, Tamura, All for One said, his voice thick with anticipation. We watch him. That boy isn't a hero. He is a relative. He is flesh of our flesh. Once the society rejects him for being a monster, he will come running to us. The prototype, Shigaraki sneered. I hate him already. Patience, All for One soothed. Let the game begin. The first week after the incident was a blur of white walls, sterile smells, and the persistent scratching of pens on clipboards. Izuku Midoriya was no longer just a patient, he was a specimen. Dr. Kudaigaraki, the man with the thick mustache and the goggles that obscured his eyes, was fascinated by him. Too fascinated. Every time Izuku went in for a checkup, the doctor would hum with a vibration that felt less like medical curiosity, and more like a gourmand looking at a particularly rare cut of steak. Your cellular regeneration is off the charts, Midoriya-kun, the doctor said, tapping a digital screen displaying Izuku's blood work. The red blood cells on the screen weren't round donuts. They were jagged, aggressive little stars, constantly attacking and consuming the dye used for the test. You've stopped aging in the traditional sense. Your cells don't degrade, they adapt. You are, biologically speaking, constantly rebooting. Izuku sat on the examination table, his legs dangling. He looked at his hands. They looked normal, pale, scarred, freckled. But he knew what lay beneath the skin. He could feel it, a low, thrumming vibration in his marrow. A beast waiting for the cage to open. And the hunger? Izuku asked, his voice quiet. Ah, yes. The thermodynamic cost of your existence, Garaki chuckled. You are running a fusion reactor in a body built for a combustion engine. You need fuel. Massive amounts of it. If you don't eat, your body will begin to cannibalize itself to maintain critical functions. It will start with fat, then muscle, then organs. And given your unique psychology, if you get too hungry, your higher brain functions might yield to the baser instincts. Baser instincts? Predation, Garaki smiled. Try not to eat your classmates. Month 1, the caloric deficit. Home was supposed to be a sanctuary. For Izuku, it became a feeding ground. The transition back to daily life was jarring. Inko Midoriya was a saint, but she was terrified. She tried to hide it, but Izuku's new senses, sharp, invasive, relentless, picked up everything. He could hear her heart skip a beat when he entered the room. He could smell the cortisol spiking in her sweat when he accidentally gripped a glass too hard and it turned to dust in his hand. But the worst part was dinner. I made katsudon, Inko said, placing a steaming bowl in front of him. It was his favorite. Izuku looked at the bowl. It smelled good, but his body didn't register it as a meal. It registered it as an appetizer. A crumb. He ate it. Then he ate the leftovers. Then he ate the rice from the cooker. Then he raided the pantry. Izuku? Inko stood in the doorway of the kitchen, clutching her robe. It was 2 a.m. Izuku was sitting on the floor, surrounded by empty wrappers, cans, and jars. He was currently eating a jar of peanut butter, scooping it out with his fingers, not because he wanted the taste, but because his cells were screaming for the density of the fats. I'm sorry, Izuku choked out, his mouth full. I can't stop. It feels like there's a hole in my stomach. Inko didn't scream. She didn't run. She walked over, sat on the floor amidst the debris of her kitchen, and pulled his head onto her shoulder. It's okay, she whispered, stroking his hair. We'll buy more. We'll buy as much as you need. Even if I have to work 3 jobs, I'll make sure you're full. Izuku cried, and his tears were thick and viscous. I'm a monster, Mom. No, she said fiercely. You are my son. You're just growing. The next day, All Might arrived. He was in his skeletal form, wearing a baggy yellow suit that hung off his sharp frame. He met Izuku at the local park, sitting on a bench that overlooked a rusty swing set. Young Midoriya, All Might said, handing him a thick binder. I have consulted with some discreet nutritionists and trainers. This is the American Dream Plan, Black Light Edition. Izuku opened the binder. The first page was just a list of caloric intake requirements. 15,000 calories a day. Minimum. 15,000? Izuku's eyes bulged. That's an elephant's diet. Your body is dense, All Might explained. I tried to lift you at the hospital. You weigh nearly 300 pounds, yet you look the same size you did a month ago. Your muscle fibers are weaving themselves into a hyper-compressed alloy of biological material. To move that mass, to fuel that regeneration, you need energy. All Might pointed a bony finger at him. But energy isn't enough. You need control. That power you showed in the tunnel, it was wild. It was chaotic. If you use that at UA, you'll kill someone. We have 10 months until the entrance exam. In those 10 months, you will not just build a vessel for one for all. Wait. All Might paused, coughing into his hand. A speck of blood appeared on his lip. I apologize. Old habits. I originally intended to give you my quirk, one for all. But, he looked Izuku up and down. Your body is already occupied. This blacklight virus, or quirk, or whatever it is jealous. It wouldn't accept my power. It would likely try to consume it, and that could kill us both. Izuku nodded. He felt it too. His DNA felt full. So, the plan has changed, All Might grinned. We aren't preparing a vessel anymore. We are sharpening a weapon. You are going to clean up Dagoba Municipal Beach Park. Month 2, the trash and the tremor. Dagoba Beach was a graveyard of modern civilization. Tires, appliances, scrap metal, and rotting driftwood piled high, blocking the ocean view. It was ugly, smelly, and forgotten. People dumped their illegal waste here, All Might said, standing atop a pile of old fridges. It's a blight. But for you, it's a gym. Izuku stood in his tracksuit, staring at a massive, rusted truck chassis half buried in the sand. Move it? Izuku asked. Drag it, All Might corrected. Without using your transformation. Use your base form. You need to understand the limits of your human shell before you start modifying it. Izuku grabbed the bumper. The metal was cold and gritty. He planted his feet, took a breath, and pulled. Nothing happened. Legs, young Midoriya. Drive through the heels. Izuku gritted his teeth. He visualized the virus inside him. Wake up. I need strength. His blood heated up. He felt the fibers in his legs tighten, coil, and lock. With a guttural roar, he heaved. Screech. The truck moved. It didn't roll. The wheels were gone. He was dragging 2 tons of dead weight through sand. His muscles burned, but not with the lactic acid burn of a normal human. It felt like his muscles were tearing and instantly stitching themselves back together stronger. He dragged it 20 meters before collapsing, panting heavily. Good. All Might laughed. Now eat this. He tossed the high-density protein bar at Izuku. Izuku caught it, and devoured it wrapper and all before realizing what he'd done. He spit the foil out sheepishly. We have work to do. Month 3, the first shift. It happened during a thunderstorm. The rain was lashing down on the beach, turning the sand into mud. Izuku was frustrated. He had been trying to clear a section of heavy industrial debris, steel beams from a demolished building. He gripped a beam, his fingers slipping on the wet metal. Come on! He grunted. It slipped. The beam fell, smashing onto his foot. Pain. Sharp, white-hot pain. But then, the pain vanished. Izuku looked down. His sneaker had burst apart. His foot wasn't crushed. It had changed. Black biomass had erupted from his ankle, consuming the shoe and the surrounding sand. It had formed a wide, three-toed claw made of a material that looked like obsidian but felt like steel. The beam was resting on the claw, not even scratching it. Young Midoriya! All Might ran over, shielding his eyes from the rain. I didn't mean to, Izuku stammered. He tried to pull his foot back, but the claw was heavy. It dug into the sand, anchoring him. Focus, All Might instructed, kneeling in the mud. Don't fight it. It's a part of you. Like flexing a muscle. Recall the shape of your human foot. Command the biomass to recede. Izuku closed his eyes. He pictured his toes. He pictured the bones, the skin. Return, he thought. Shift back. The black material rippled. It looked like ferro fluid reacting to a magnet. The hard chitin liquefied, retracted, and reshaped itself into a pale, human foot. The only evidence was his shredded sneaker. Your body reacts to trauma by hardening, All Might observed. Defensive evolution. If we can harness that, you won't just be strong. You'll be indestructible. But it's scary, Izuku admitted, looking at his trembling hands. It feels alive. Like it wants to be a weapon. A sword has no will of its own, All Might said softly. It is the heart of the wielder that decides if it is a tool of justice or an instrument of murder. Your heart is good, Izuku. Never forget that. Month 5, Hunter's Sight. The training intensified. Izuku wasn't just hauling trash anymore. He was sprinting while carrying safes, doing plyometrics over piles of tires, and swimming against the current with parachutes tied to his waist. But the physical changes were accompanied by sensory ones. Izuku was walking home from school, taking the long way to avoid Bakugo, who had been oddly quiet lately. The sun was setting, casting long shadows. Suddenly, the world shifted. The colors drained from his vision, replaced by a monochrome gray. But within the gray, there were pulses of light. He looked at a stray cat sitting on a wall. It wasn't a cat anymore. It was a glowing orange silhouette of heat. He could see the rapid beat of its heart, the flow of blood to its paws. He looked at a salaryman walking past him. The man was blue, cold, tired. But there was a red cluster in his chest. Arrhythmia. Izuku's brain supplied the information instantly. Irregular heartbeat. Sickness. He looked up at the sky. A pigeon flew overhead. He didn't just see the bird. He calculated its trajectory, its velocity, the exact spot where it would land if he threw a rock. Hunter's sight, active. The impulse hit him like a physical blow. Prey. Target. Consume. Izuku stumbled, clutching his head. The noise of the city became a cacophony of heartbeats. Thump thump. Thump thump. Thousands of blood bags walking around him. Stop it! He hissed, pressing his palms into his eyes. I'm not a predator. He ducked into an alleyway, hyperventilating. He needed to ground himself. He needed to remember who he was. He pulled out his phone and opened a picture. It was a photo of him and his mom from his birthday. Human. I am human. He focused on the image, forcing the thermal overlay to recede. The colors bled back into the world. The heartbeats faded into the background noise of traffic. He leaned against the brick wall, sweating. This power wasn't just strength. It was a rewiring of his entire perception. He wasn't just looking at the world. He was analyzing its nutritional value. He had to tell All Might. He had to learn how to turn this off, or he'd go insane. Month 6, Biomass and Geometry. So, you see thermal signatures? All Might asked the next day. And biology, Izuku clarified. He was balancing on a pile of scrap metal on one leg, holding a microwave in each hand. I can see weak points. I can see sickness, useful for rescue work, All Might noted. You could find people trapped under rubble by their body heat alone, or hunt them, Izuku muttered. Rescue, All Might emphasized. Now let's work on the offensive capabilities. You mentioned the claws in the tunnel. Can you bring them out at will? Izuku dropped the microwaves. He took a deep breath. He focused on his right arm. He imagined the bones splitting, the skin hardening, sharp, lethal, fast, schlick. With a wet tearing sound, his right hand vanished. In its place, 3-foot-long, serrated blades of black bone erupted. They curved slightly, wicked and cruel. The skin of his forearm was now armored plating. Impressive, All Might said, though he took a subconscious half-step back. Now the left arm. Try something different. Blunt force. Izuku focused on his left arm. Heavy. Dense. Impact. The biomass surged. It didn't sharpen, it swelled. His forearm tripled in size, the muscle fibers weaving over each other until his hand was a massive, knobby lump of hardened black rock and red muscle. It looked like a boulder fused to his elbow. Hammer fist. Good. All Might pointed to a rusted sedan. Smash. Izuku raised the hammer fist. It felt incredibly heavy, but the counterweighting in his shoulder adjusted automatically. He brought it down. Crunch. The car didn't just dent, it flattened. The impact sent a shockwave through the sand, shattering the windows of the car next to it. The sedan was reduced to a metal pancake. Izuku retracted the hammer fist, panting. It uses so much energy. I feel like I just ran a marathon. He ripped open a packet of glucose gel and downed it. That is your limiter, All Might said. You are a cannon. You have devastating firepower, but limited ammunition. You must be strategic. You can't just stay in that form forever. I call this one muscle mass, Izuku said, looking at his normal hand. Or maybe hammer fist. And the other one claws. Simple. I like it. But you need mobility. Mobility? All Might pointed to the top of a pile of shipping containers. Get up there. Without climbing, Izuku looked at the height. It was 30 feet up. Jump, jump, Izuku crouched. He channeled the virus into his legs. He felt the springs coil. Boom, he launched himself. He cleared the containers easily, too easily. He soared 50 feet into the air. Whoa! Izuku flailed. He began to fall. The ground was rushing up. Don't go splat. Don't go splat. Instinct took over. The biomass in his arms and legs flared out, creating thin membranes of skin between his limbs. Air-glide. He caught the air, swooping forward in a controlled glide, and landed with a heavy thud on top of the container. You can fly? All Might shouted from below. Just falling with style. Izuku shouted back, a grin finally breaking through his anxiety. For the first time, the power felt fun. Month 8, the spar. It was time to fight. All Might couldn't fight in his true form for long, and he wouldn't risk hurting Izuku in his weak form. So, he called in a favor. Meet your sparring partner, All Might gestured. A man in a gray jumpsuit walked onto the beach. He looked tired. A scarf was wrapped loosely around his neck. Eraserhead? Izuku gasped. The underground hero? Shota Aizawa looked at the boy. He looked at the pile of cleared trash. He looked at the black veins pulsing faintly under Izuku's skin. All Might told me you're a problem child, Aizawa deadpanned. Said you have a quirk that acts like a biological weapon. I try not to be, Izuku bowed nervously. Don't bow. Fight. Aizawa's scarf shot out. It was faster than Izuku expected. It wrapped around his waist and yanked him forward. Izuku panicked. He tried to activate his armor, a defensive skin he'd been working on, but nothing happened. The biomass remained dormant. What? Izuku gasped. Aizawa's hair was floating. His eyes glowed red. Erasure, Aizawa said, delivering a knee to Izuku's gut. Izuku doubled over, wheezing. It hurt. It hurt like a normal human injury. Your quirk is biological, Aizawa lectured, stepping back. But it's still a quirk factor. I can shut off the active mutation. I can't stop your passive density, but I can stop you from shifting. He waited for Izuku to stand. You rely too much on the monster, Aizawa said coldly. If I take away the claws, what are you? Just a kid who eats too much? Izuku gritted his teeth. No, then show me. They fought for an hour. Without his shifting abilities, Izuku was clumsy. He had strength, but no technique. Aizawa tossed him around like a ragdoll, but Izuku was learning. With Hunter's sight, which seemed to be a passive physiological change that erasure couldn't fully block, only dampen, he began to predict Aizawa's movements. He favors his right leg. His center of gravity shifts before he throws the capture tape. Izuku waited. Aizawa threw the tape. Instead of dodging, Izuku stepped into it. He grabbed the tape. Gotcha, Aizawa smirked. No, Izuku growled. I got you. He yanked. With his superhuman base strength, he pulled Aizawa off his feet, flying toward him. Aizawa widened his eyes. He cut the erasure to blink. In that split second, Izuku's arm turned black. Not a claw, not a hammer. A shield. Shield power. He slammed the shield into the sand, creating a wall that blocked Aizawa's counterkick. Then, he extended a single tendril from his shoulder, tapping Aizawa on the chest. Bang, Izuku whispered. Aizawa landed, dusting off his jumpsuit. He looked at the boy, then at All Might. He's got good instincts, Aizawa admitted, though he sounded bored. But he telegraphs his attacks. And he hesitates before he strikes. In a real fight, hesitation is death. He walked away. Fix that before the exam, or he'll be dead in a week. Month 9, the truck incident. The beach was nearly clean. Only the massive, rusted pickup truck remained, the one Izuku had tried to move on the first day. Izuku stood before it. He had grown. He was taller now, his shoulders broader. The baby fat was gone, replaced by lean, corded muscle. He wore a tank top that showed the faint, spiderweb scars of black veins running up his arms and neck. This is the final test of strength, All Might said. Clean this beach. Move the truck to the recycling pile. Izuku approached the truck. He didn't drag it this time. He squatted down, gripping the undercarriage. 1, 2. He lifted. The truck rose into the air. Izuku groaned, his veins popping. He was holding the entire vehicle over his head. Yes. Incredible base strength. Now walk it to the... Suddenly, a group of teenagers on bikes rode past the upper embankment. One of them threw a glass bottle. It wasn't aimed at Izuku, just random vandalism, but it shattered on the truck's fender. The sound. Crash. It triggered something. A memory of the sludge villain. A reflex. Threat detected. The virus surged. It bypassed Izuku's conscious control. No! Izuku yelled. His arms exploded into the blade form. The massive, sharp chitin sliced upwards. The truck didn't stand a chance. The blade sheared through the chassis, the engine block, the axles, and the cab like a hot knife through butter. The truck split in half. The two pieces crashed to the sand on either side of Izuku. Izuku stood there, his breath hitching. His arms were still blades, long, serrated, terrifying. He had destroyed the truck in a heartbeat. If that had been a person, he fell to his knees. The blades melted back into hands, but he couldn't stop shaking. I can't do it, he sobbed. All Might, I can't go to UA. All Might rushed over, kneeling beside him. Young Midoriya, breathe. What is wrong? I'm a weapon! Izuku screamed, pointing at the sliced truck. Look at that. I didn't mean to do that. It just happened. If I get startled, if I get angry, I could cut someone in half. I could kill Kaken. I could kill you. He curled into a ball, clutching his head. I'm not a hero. I'm just a dormant villain waiting to hatch. All Might was silent for a long moment. The wind blew off the ocean, carrying the smell of salt and rust. Do you know why I smile, Izuku? Izuku looked up, tears streaming down his face. I smile to trick the fear inside me. Because the pressure of being the symbol of peace is crushing. I am terrified every single day that I will fail. That I will break something I cannot fix. All Might transformed. There was a poof of steam, and suddenly the muscular, towering hero stood there. He flexed his arm. Power is always dangerous. Fire cooks food, but it burns down houses. Water gives life, but it drowns cities. You are afraid of your power. Good. He placed a massive hand on Izuku's head. Keep that fear. Let it make you cautious. Let it make you precise. A monster kills without thought. You are terrified of killing. That is what makes you human. That is what makes you a hero. All Might pointed to the horizon. You destroyed the truck because you lost focus. So we train focus. We train until the beast inside you only wakes up when you give it permission. You are the master, Izuku. Not the virus. Izuku wiped his eyes. He looked at the sliced metal. The cut was clean, almost surgical. A surgeon's knife, he thought. I have to be a surgeon. Okay, Izuku stood up. His legs were steady. I'll do it. Month 10, the apex predator. The day of the exam arrived. Dagoba Beach was unrecognizable. The trash was gone. The golden sand sparkled under the morning sun. The ocean view was unobstructed, blue and beautiful. Standing atop the seawall was Izuku Midoriya. He wore his middle school uniform, but it fit differently now. The buttons strained across his chest. He stood with a predator's grace, still, but ready to explode into motion at any second. All Might stood beside him, in his skeletal form. You've done it, All Might said, pride radiating from him. You have cleaned the beach. You have mastered the caloric intake. You have begun to tame the black light. Izuku looked at his hands. He clenched his fist. The skin turned black for a second, hardened into armor, and then relaxed. I'm still hungry, Izuku said, a small smile playing on his lips. That might never go away, All Might admitted. But you have snacks. Izuku patted his bag. It was filled with high-density protein bars and a thermos of glucose solution. All Might, Izuku turned to face his mentor. Thank you? You didn't give me your quirk. But you gave me something better. Oh, you gave me a reason to not be a monster. Izuku bowed deep. Go! All Might shouted, tears springing to his eyes. Go and show Yui what a true hero looks like. Even if he looks a little scary. Yui High School entrance. The gates of Yui were massive. Students swarmed through them, a sea of nervous energy. Izuku walked through the crowd. He didn't shrink back this time. He didn't mutter. He walked with purpose. His hunter's sight flickered on involuntarily, scanning the crowd. Stress levels high. Heart rates elevated. Quirks priming. He saw a girl with brown hair trip. Target falling. Impact imminent. Before he could think, he moved. Not with a quirk, but with the raw, explosive speed he had built, dragging trucks through the sand. He caught her arm before she hit the ground. Whoa! Uraraka Ochako gasped, looking up. Thanks. I nearly face-planted. Izuku blinked, his eyes flashing green. Careful. It's crowded. You're really strong, she noted, rubbing her arm where he had grabbed her. And your hands are warm? High metabolism, Izuku said shortly. Good luck. He walked away, leaving a confused Uraraka behind. DKU. The roar came from behind. Bakugo Katsuki marched up, smoke rising from his hands. Get out of my way, you damn nerd! Don't stand in front of me or I'll kill you! Izuku stopped. He turned slowly. For years he had flinched. He had cowered. But now, Izuku looked at Bakugo. He didn't see a bully. With his thermal vision, he saw a boy with high blood pressure, tense shoulders, and a massive insecurity complex radiating from his posture. He saw prey. The virus whispered. Consume. Izuku silenced the voice. He looked Bakugo in the eye. Good morning, Kaken, Izuku said calmly. His voice was deeper, lacking the tremor of the past. Let's do our best. He turned and walked into the building. Bakugo stood there stunned. He had expected fear. He had expected stuttering. But Deku had looked at him like a wolf looks at a barking chihuahua. What the hell was that? Bakugo whispered, his hands sparking. The written exam. Izuku breezed through it. His brain, enhanced by the virus's processing speed, recalled information with perfect clarity. He finished 10 minutes early and spent the time eating 3 energy bars, ignoring the weird looks from the proctors. The practical exam briefing. President Mike was shouting. The rules were simple. Robots. Points. Smash. Excuse me. Tenya Ida stood up, pointing at the pamphlet. There are 4 types of villains listed, but you only mentioned 3. If this is an error, it is shameful for you, eh? Then he pointed at Izuku. And you, the curly-haired boy. You've been vibrating and opening candy wrappers this entire time. It's distracting. If you're here on a field trip, leave. Izuku swallowed the last bite of his bar. The entire auditorium turned to look at him. I need the calories, Izuku said, his voice projecting clearly across the hall without shouting. If I run out of fuel during the exam, I might eat the robots. Or you. The silence was deafening. Ida blinked, adjusting his glasses. Is that a threat? It's a medical fact, Izuku said flatly. Sorry for the noise. I'll be quiet. President Mike coughed nervously. Okay. Everybody say hey. Let's move on to the 4th villain. The 0-pointer, Battle Center B. Izuku stood in front of the massive gates. He was surrounded by other examinees. He adjusted his gloves, special reinforced polymer gloves All Might had bought him to hide his hands until he needed to shift. That guy. Someone whispered. The one who threatened the glasses kid. He looks intense. Doesn't look like he has a quirk though. No gear. Izuku closed his eyes. He visualized the layout of the city. Robots. Metal. Inorganic. Virus status. Hungry. Ready. Start. Present Mike screamed from the tower. What are you waiting for? There are no countdowns in real battles. While the others hesitated, Izuku moved. He didn't run. He launched. The pavement cracked under his feet as he exploded forward, leaving a cloud of dust behind him. He was a blur of green and black, moving faster than a car. Whoa! The students gasped. Izuku entered the city. A 3-pointer, a massive drone with treads, rolled out from an alley. Target acquired, the robot beeped. Izuku didn't slow down. He leaped into the air. Muscle mass, he whispered. His right arm engorged, the black biomass surging, turning his fist into a wrecking ball. He slammed it down on the robot's head. BLAM. The robot didn't just break, it shattered. Parts flew everywhere. The chassis was driven into the asphalt. Izuku landed, his arms shifting back to normal instantly to conserve energy. 3 points, he muttered, his eyes scanning for the next target. The hunt had begun. And for the first time in his life, Izuku Midoriya wasn't the one running away. The mock city was a sprawling labyrinth of concrete and steel, a meticulous replication of an urban warzone. Skyscrapers cast long, jagged shadows over the streets, and the air smelled faintly of ozone and machine oil. To the average examinee, it was an intimidating obstacle course. To Izuku Midoriya, it was a buffet. The initial surge of students had finally caught up, their footsteps thundering behind him, but Izuku was already 3 blocks deep into the city. He moved with a gait that was distinctly unnatural, a loping, predatory stride that covered ground with terrifying efficiency. He didn't run like a track athlete. He ran like a wolf closing in on a wounded deer. A trio of 2-pointer robots, bipedal, scorpion-tailed machines, skidded around a corner, their optical sensors locking onto him. Target detected. Commencing purge. Their mechanical voices were drowned out by the sound of Izuku's biology rewriting itself. He didn't break stride. As he closed the distance, his arms didn't just swing, they rippled. The skin of his forearms split open with a wet, tearing sound, revealing the glistening black biomass beneath. It surged forward, hardening instantly into a dense, chitinous material. His hands vanished. In their place were the claws. 3-foot-long, serrated talons of black bone curved from his wrists. They weren't just sharp, they vibrated slightly, humming with a frequency that made the air around them blur. The first robot lunged. Izuku ducked under its hydraulic claw, his movement fluid. He spun, a blur of green lightning and black death. Schlick. The sound was sickeningly wet for metal on metal. Izuku's claws sheared through the robot's torso effortlessly. Sparks showered him as the top half of the machine slid off the bottom half, the cut edges glowing orange from the friction. 2, Izuku counted softly. The second robot fired a rubber bullet. Izuku swatted it out of the air with the back of his claw, not even looking, and drove his left hand, also transformed, straight through the machine's central processor. He yanked it back, ripping out a handful of wires and motherboard. 4. The third robot hesitated. Its basic AI processed the destruction of its squad mates and calculated a retreat. It turned its treads to flee. Izuku leaped. He didn't jump off the ground so much as he erupted from it. The concrete shattered under his sneakers. He soared 20 feet into the air, flipping once, and landed squarely on the robot's shoulders. With a roar that was half human, half beast, he drove both claws down. The robot crumpled like a soda can. 6. He stood atop the wreckage, panting slightly. His claws melted, the black substance retracting into his skin like water soaking into a sponge. His hands returned, pink and scarred. He reached into his pouch, pulled out a high-density glucose gel, and squeezed it into his mouth. Fuel burned, 400 calories. Fuel replenished, 350. Still in a deficit, he muttered, wiping his mouth. Need to be more efficient. From a block away, other students watched in horror. Did you see that? A boy with a rock-skin quirk whispered. He tore them apart. Is that his quirk? Some kind of blade power? It looks like a villain's quirk. Izuku's ears twitched. He heard them. He ignored them. Hunter's sight. The world turned gray. The buildings became translucent wireframes. Through the walls, he saw the heat signatures of the other students, blue and green blobs of anxiety. But more importantly, he saw the cold, electric blue pulses of the robot's batteries. A swarm of one-pointers was gathering in the central plaza. Target-rich environment. Izuku grinned. It wasn't a nice grin. It was a baring of teeth. He took off again, running up the side of a building. He defied gravity, his feet adhering to the brickwork with microscopic biomass hooks. He reached the roof and sprinted across it, jumping the gap to the next building. He was the apex predator here. And he was starving for points. Observation room. In a dark room lined with monitors, the faculty of UA High watched the chaos unfold. This year's batch is certainly spirited. Midnight purred, leaning forward to watch a boy with engines in his calves kick a robot's head off. Indeed, Nizu, the principal, squeaked. He took a sip of tea. We have a good mix of power types. Emitters, transformational types. Oh, his beady eyes locked onto screen 4. This one is interesting. On the screen, Izuku was dropping from a 4-story building. He didn't brace for impact. Instead, his legs shifted mid-air. The biomass swelled, tripling the size of his thighs and calves. He landed on a cluster of 3 robots with a ground-spike graveyard attack, biomass erupting from the ground upon impact, skewering the machines on spikes of hardened black bone. Who is that? Cementos asked, his brow furrowing. That power, it's visceral. Izuku Midoriya, All Might said. He was standing in the back, hidden in the shadows of the room to maintain his mysterious aura. He filed his quirk under biomass manipulation. Manipulation? Vlad King scoffed. That looks like mutilation. The kid fights like a wild animal. Efficient, brutal, no wasted movement. He's racking up villain points at an alarming rate, Power Loader noted, tapping a console. He's at 52 points already. He's dismantling my babies like they're made of paper. But Aizawa spoke up from his sleeping bag in the corner, one eye open. Look at his collateral damage. He's avoiding the buildings. He's ensuring no debris hits the other examinees. He's wild, but he's controlled. Humph, Niza smiled. He has the combat ability, certainly. But does he have the heart of a hero? Let's find out. Release the gimmick. Niza's paw slammed down on a big red button. Battle Center be the plaza. 58. 59. Izuku punted a robot head into a wall. He was tired. The heat in his veins was becoming uncomfortable, a fever that wouldn't break. He had been shifting constantly for 10 minutes. His shirt was soaked in sweat, clinging to his frame. This should be enough to pass, he reasoned, scanning the area. Most of the robots had been destroyed. The other students were panting, comparing scores. I got 30. I got 42. I only got 10. Suddenly, the ground shook. It wasn't a tremor. It was an earthquake. Dust billowed from the northern end of the city. Buildings groaned as their foundations were rocked. Boom, boom. A shadow fell over the plaza. A shadow so large it blotted out the sun. The 0-pointer emerged. It was colossal. A moving skyscraper of green metal. Its treads crushed cars flat. Its head scraped the clouds. It roared, a mechanical sound that vibrated in the chest cavity of every student present. What is that? It's huge! Run! There's no way we can fight that. Panic ensued. The students who had been bragging moments ago turned and fled, screaming. It was a stampede of fear. Izuku stood his ground, shielding his eyes from the dust. 0 points. Not worth the calories. He turned to leave. His logic was sound. It was an obstacle to be avoided. Fighting it was a waste of precious energy he might need if there was a surprise second phase. Run away. Survive. He took a step back. Ow! A small voice cut through the roar of the machine and the screams of the crowd. Izuku froze. His hunter's sight flared. He spun around. Through the dust, he saw a heat signature on the ground. Bright orange, pulsing erratically. It was the girl. The one with the round face. Uraraka. She was trapped under a pile of rubble. A piece of concrete from a destroyed building had pinned her leg. She was trying to lift it, but she was exhausted. The 0-pointer was looming over her. Its massive tread was descending. It would crush her in 10 seconds. The other students were running away. They didn't see her. Or they were too scared to look. Logic, she is irrelevant. Helping her grants 0 points. Risk of injury is 99%. Instinct, she is pack. Izuku's body moved before his brain could finish the debate. No! He screamed, the sound tearing from his throat like a gunshot. He sprinted toward the robot. He wasn't gliding this time. He was burning every ounce of reserve fuel he had. Warning, caloric levels critical. Engaging adrenal backup. His vision tunneled. All he saw was the tread. All he saw was the girl. He reached the rubble pile. He didn't try to lift the concrete. There was no time. He looked up at the robot. The tread was 20 feet above them and descending fast. Hey! Izuku yelled at her. Uraraka looked up, her face streaked with dust and tears. Run! Get away! Izuku ignored her. He looked at the robot. He needed to stop it. He needed to hit it hard enough to shatter the laws of physics. He crouched. He focused everything on his right arm. More, he commanded the virus. More mass. More density. The black veins on his neck bulged. His right sleeve exploded into tatters. The biomass poured out, not forming a claw or a hammer, but something new. Something grotesque and beautiful. Tendrils whipped around his arm, braiding themselves into a massive, pressurized muscle. It pulsed with red light. Steam hissed from his pores. He jumped. He didn't aim for the tread. He aimed for the face. He launched himself straight up, a green rocket. He passed the tread. He passed the torso. He was level with the robot's optical sensors. Smash! He didn't scream Detroit Smash. He didn't have a name for this move yet. He swung. The biomass-enhanced fist connected with the center of the 0-pointer's faceplate. Crack boom. The impact created a sonic boom that shattered the windows of every building within a 3-block radius. The 0-pointer's head didn't just dent. It caved in. The force traveled down the robot's neck, buckling the titanium spine. The massive machine was lifted off the ground by the sheer kinetic energy of the uppercut. It tilted backward. Explosions rippled across its chassis. It began to fall away from Uraraka. Izuku hung in the air for a second, weightless. Then gravity remembered him. He began to fall. And he realized something terrifying. My arm and legs are broken. The force of the jump had shattered his leg bones. The force of the punch had turned his right arm into jelly. The biomass was trying to hold him together, acting as a splint, but he had no energy left to glide. He was falling from 200 feet. Oh crap, Izuku whispered. He watched the ground rushing up. He tried to muster the energy for an air dash, but his cells were silent. The tank was empty. Suddenly a slap. Uraraka, freed by the tremor of the robot's fall, was floating on a piece of debris. She slapped Izuku's cheek as he fell past her. Release! She gasped. Izuku stopped. He hovered 3 feet off the ground. Then, he dropped gently onto the pavement. He lay there, staring at the sky. His limbs were twisted at wrong angles. That... Izuku wheezed, coughing up a little black blood. That was expensive. The aftermath. The dust settled. The zero-pointer lay in ruins, a smoking mountain of scrap. The students crept back, their eyes wide. He took it down. One punch? Did you see his arm? It turned into a monster. Recovery girl arrived pushing her cart through the crowd. Out of the way. Make room for the injured. She reached Izuku. He was trying to stand up, his bones audibly crunching back into place as the virus desperately tried to heal him. Stop moving, you idiot! Recovery girl scolded, whacking him with her cane. Your body is eating itself to fix the damage. You're skeletal. She was right. Izuku looked emaciated. His cheeks were sunken, his skin gray. He had burned so much mass in that one attack that he looked like a famine victim. Here, she tossed him a handful of gummies. Eat. And hold still. She kissed his forehead. Smooch. The green light of her healing quirk washed over him. Combined with his natural regeneration, the effect was instantaneous. His bones snapped straight. The color returned to his cheeks, slightly. Wow, recovery girl muttered. Usually that drains stamina. But your cells, they accepted the energy like a sponge. You're a medical anomaly, Sonny. Izuku sat up, rubbing his arm. His uniform was destroyed. He was shirtless, revealing the scarring and the black veins that ran like tattoos across his chest. Ida walked up to him. The tall boy looked shaken. You. Ida adjusted his glasses. You knew, didn't you? Knew what? Izuku asked, tearing open a protein bar wrapper with his teeth. That helping her was the true test, Ida said, clenching his fist. I ran away. I calculated the score and I ran. But you saw the danger and jumped in. You are superior to me, Izuku swallowed the bar. I just moved. I didn't think. That, Ida said solemnly, is what makes a hero. Uraraka was being treated nearby. She looked over at Izuku and gave him a weak thumbs up. Then she promptly threw up a rainbow of sparkles. Izuku smiled. He was alive. He hadn't eaten anyone. And he had punched a giant robot. Not a bad day. 1 week later, the letter arrived. Izuku sat at his desk in his room. The envelope was heavy. It had the Yui seal on it. Inko was pacing in the hallway, muttering prayers. Izuku tore it open. A holographic disc fell out. A projection of All Might appeared. I am here. As a projection, All Might? Izuku gasped. But I just saw you this morning at the beach. This is a recording. The hologram clarified. Young Midoriya. The written exam results are in. You passed with flying colors. But the practical, oh boy, Izuku's heart sank. I knew it. 0 points. I spent all my time running around and only got 50-something combat points before the big one. You acquired 60 villain points. An impressive score. But that's not all. The video shifted. It showed the clip of Uraraka in the principal's office. Please. Can I give him some of my points? He saved me. He had 0 points at the end because he wasted time saving me. It's not fair. Izuku's eyes watered. You can't give him your points, Nisa's voice replied in the video. Because points are not currency. All Might returned to the screen. How can a hero course reject someone who saves others and does the right thing? Call that lip service? Bring it on. This is a job that requires risking one's life to put that lip service into practice. Rescue points. A scoreboard appeared. Izuku Midoriya villain points, 60. Rescue points, 60. Total, 120. You passed in first place. All Might shouted. Come, young Midoriya. This is your hero academia. Izuku stared at the screen. He touched the hologram. I did it, he whispered. His hand trembled. For a second, the skin rippled, the black light trying to express his overwhelming emotion physically. But he breathed, and it steadied. He opened the door. Mom! I got in. Yui High first day. The uniform felt tight. Yui had to custom order a blazer with reinforced fabric because Izuku's muscle density kept shredding the standard wool. He stood in front of Class 1A. The door was massive. Here we go, he muttered. Please let it be a normal class. Please let Bakugo be in another class. He opened the door. Get your feet off the desk. Ha! Make me, 4 eyes. Ida and Bakugo were already at it. Great, Izuku sighed. He walked in. The room went silent. Bakugo stared at him. But he didn't yell. He just glared, his eyes tracking Izuku's movement with a mixture of hatred and wary respect. He remembered the entrance exam. He had heard the rumors of the kid who once shot the 0-pointer. It's him. Uraraka ran over. The curly-hair guy. You passed. That punch was amazing. Oh hey, Izuku rubbed the back of his neck. I'm Midoriya. I'm Uraraka. And this is Ida. We have met. Ida bowed perfectly at a 90-degree angle. Midoriya-kun. I misjudged you. You perceived the true nature of the exam. I am humbled. It wasn't really. I mean, if you're just here to make friends, you can pack up and leave. The voice came from the floor. A yellow sleeping bag lay in the doorway. A man unzipped it and drank a juice pouch. It took you 8 seconds to quiet down. Shota Aizawa stood up. He looked exhausted. Time is limited. You kids are not rational enough. He walked to the podium. I'm your homeroom teacher, Shota Aizawa. Homeroom teacher? The class gasped. Aizawa pulled out a gym uniform. Put these on and head out to the grounds. But what about the ceremony? The guidance counselor meeting? Uraraka asked. If you want to be a hero, you don't have time for such leisurely events, Aizawa said, his eyes boring into Izuku. UA's selling point is freedom of style. And that applies to the teachers as well, he grinned. It was a predator's grin. We're doing a quirk apprehension test. The test grounds. The class stood in a line on the dirt field. Bakugo. Aizawa tossed him a ball. How far could you throw in middle school? 67 meters. Try it with your quirk. Bakugo stepped into the circle. He smirked. I'll show Deku who's boss. Die. Boom. The ball rocketed into the sky, propelled by a massive explosion. 705.2 meters, Aizawa showed the device. Whoa! Awesome! We can use our quirks? This looks like fun. Fun? Aizawa's expression darkened. You have 3 years to become heroes. You think it's going to be all fun and games? He looked at them with cold, dead eyes. Right. The one with the lowest score across all 8 events will be judged to have no potential, and will be expelled. Expelled? The class shrieked. Welcome to the hero course. Izuku clenched his fist. Lowest score. Expulsion. He looked at Aizawa. He recognized him from the beach training. Aizawa knew his weakness. He knew he could erase the mutations. He's testing me specifically, Izuku realized. He wants to see if I can function without losing control. Test 1, 50-meter dash. Ida went first. 3.04 seconds. Like a fish in water. Then came Izuku versus Bakugo. Don't hold back, Deku. Bakugo growled. Ready. Go. Bakugo blasted off, using explosions to fly backward. Izuku didn't shift his legs. He couldn't risk tearing up the track with his claws. Instead, he channeled the biomass internally, compressing his leg muscles into hyperdense springs. He kicked off. The ground dented. He was a bullet. He didn't fly. He just ran with impossible force. Whoosh! Izuku crossed the line. 3.01 seconds. Bakugo crossed. 4.13 seconds. Bakugo skidded to a halt, staring at the board. He beat me? In speed? Izuku panted. His legs felt hot. Smoke wafted from his shoes. Test 2, grip strength. Izuku squeezed the device. Crunch. It crumbled into dust and plastic shards in his hand. Oops, Izuku muttered. Error, the machine read. Mizo Shoji, the guy with multiple arms, looked at his own score of 540 kilograms. Then he looked at Izuku's pile of dust. Dude, test 3, standing long jump. Izuku cleared the sandbox entirely. He actually cleared the fence behind the sandbox. Test 4, repeated side steps. Mineta, the great boy, was bouncing rapidly. Izuku just moved side to side so fast he created afterimages. Test 5, ball throw. Uraraka threw the ball. Infinity. Infinity? The class jaw dropped. Now it was Izuku's turn. He stepped into the circle. If I use the hammer fist, I'll destroy the ball, he thought. I need to act like a whip. He wound up. He channeled the biomass into his arm. Whip fist mechanics. Elasticity. Snap. His arm rippled. It turned black. It elongated slightly as he threw, snapping like a rubber band. Smash! The ball flew. But suddenly, the power vanished. His arm turned back to normal mid-throw. The ball flopped onto the grass. 46 meters. What? Izuku gasped. He looked at Aizawa. His hair was floating. His eyes were red. I erased your quirk, Aizawa said, walking closer. That entrance exam was definitely not rational. Even with your raw power, you're a liability. You break everything you touch. He got right in Izuku's face. From what I saw, you can't control your quirk. It controls you. You get angry or scared, and you turn into a monster. Are you going to save people by eating the villains? Izuku flinched. It was his deepest fear laid bare. No, Izuku whispered. Then prove it, Aizawa blinked. His hair fell. I returned your quirk. You have one more throw. Hurry up. Izuku stood in the circle. He's right. If I rely on the monster, I'm just a weapon. I need to focus. Concentrate the power. Don't let it consume the whole arm. Just the tip of the finger. He wound up again. He felt the virus screaming to take over, to envelope his whole body in armor. He pushed it back. He forced it into his index finger. The finger turned black. The pressure built up. He threw. At the very last second, he snapped his finger. Boom! The air cracked. The ball shot into the stratosphere like a cannonball. Izuku clutched his finger. It was broken, swollen and purple. But the rest of his arm was fine. Aizawa looked at the device. 705.3 meters. He beat Bakugo by 0.1 meters. Izuku turned around, clutching his throbbing finger. He smiled, a pained, sweaty, defiant smile. Sensei. Izuku panted. I haven't eaten anyone yet. Aizawa stared at him. Then, the corners of his mouth twitched up into a terrifying grin. This kid. Bakugo stood in the background, his hands trembling. Small explosions popped uncontrollably. Deku! He lunged. Tell me how you did that, you bastard! He was going to kill him. He was going to blow his face off. Izuku saw him coming. Threat detected. Option 1, shield. Option 2, counterattack. Option 3, submit. Izuku didn't submit. He stood his ground. He raised his hand ready to intercept. But suddenly Aizawa's scarf wrapped around Bakugo, restraining him. Stop it, Aizawa commanded. My eyes are getting dry. He dropped Bakugo. We're done here. Midoriya, go to the nurse. Izuku walked past Bakugo. He didn't look at him with fear. He looked at him with pity. You're slow, Kaken, Izuku whispered as he passed. Bakugo froze. His world was crumbling. The pebble was now a mountain. End of day. The scores were posted. 1. Momo Yaoyorozu. 2. Izuku Midoriya. 3. Shoto Todoroki. 4. Katsuki Bakugo. 20. Izuku Midoriya. Wait. No, Mineta was 19. Izuku was second. By the way, Aizawa said, packing up his sleeping bag. The expulsion was a lie. It was a logical ruse to draw out your upper limits. What? The class screamed. I knew it! Momo said proudly. Izuku sighed, sliding down the wall. He was exhausted. He took a bite of a Snickers bar. Midoriya, Aizawa stopped at the door. Yes, sir, you have good control. Better than I expected. But don't get cocky. The hunger will always be there. I know, Izuku said. Aizawa nodded and left. As Izuku walked home that evening, he looked at his broken finger. It was already healing, the bone knitting together. He wasn't All Might. He wasn't a symbol of peace yet, but he was the prototype. And he was evolving. The air on the pea grounds was dry and tasted of dust. The sun beat down with an intensity that would have been uncomfortable for a normal student, but for Izuku Midoriya, it was just ambient thermal energy washing over his skin. He stood in the line of students, his new gym uniform feeling tight across his shoulders. The fabric was standard UA issue, blue with white lines forming the letters UNA, but it felt fragile against his skin. Everything felt fragile lately. The world was made of cardboard, and he was a creature made of tungsten and hunger. A quirk apprehension test? The class was in an uproar. Uraraka Ochako, the girl with the gravity quirk and the kind eyes, looked distressed. But what about the entrance ceremony? The orientation? We're going to miss everything. Shota Aizawa, the man who looked more like a homeless vagrant than a teacher at the most prestigious hero school in the world, turned his back to them. His long, messy black hair hung limp, but there was a tension in his posture that screamed danger. If you're going to become a hero, you don't have time for such leisurely events, Aizawa muttered, his voice low and scratching against the silence of the field. UA's selling point is freedom of style, and that applies to how I run my class. He turned his head slightly, his dark eye fixing on Izuku. It was a look devoid of warmth. It was the look a bomb disposal expert gave a ticking package. You all have been doing these tests since junior high, Aizawa continued, pulling a device from his pocket. Physical fitness tests where you were barred from using your quirks. The country still insists on using averages taken from uniform records. It's not rational. But here, you will do whatever you want. He tossed the softball into the air and caught it. Bakugo. Katsuki Bakugo stiffened. He stood a few feet away from Izuku, his posture radiating aggression. He hadn't looked at Izuku since they entered the grounds, but Izuku could smell the nitroglycerin sweating from his palms. It smelled sweet and sharp, like burned sugar. You finished at the top of the practical exam, Aizawa said. In junior high, what was your best result for the softball throw? 67 meters, Bakugo grunted. Then try it with your quirk. Aizawa pointed to the circle painted on the ground. You can do whatever you want as long as you stay in the circle. Hurry up. Give it all you got. Bakugo walked to the circle. He rolled his shoulders, stretching his arms. A cruel grin spread across his face. Izuku watched him. His hunter's sight flickered on involuntarily. He saw the heat gathering in Bakugo's palms, bright, angry oranges and reds. The sweat glands were dilating. The ignition spark was priming. He's going to add a blast at the moment of release, Izuku murmured to himself, analyzing the biomechanics. Using the explosion to generate angular momentum, Bakugo wound up. He screamed, a sound of pure, unadulterated ambition. Dai! Boom! The explosion was massive. A shockwave of heat and dust rolled over the class. The ball shot into the sky, leaving a trail of smoke like a miniature comet. Die! Izuku heard a boy with yellow hair whisper. That's a little intense. The ball vanished into the blue. A few seconds later, Aizawa's device beeped. He turned the screen to face the class. 705.2 meters. Whoa! Seriously? That's over 700 meters. We can use our quirks as much as we want. This is going to be awesome. The tension broke. The students smiled. They were excited. They were showing off. Izuku didn't smile. He was watching Aizawa. The teacher's expression hadn't changed. If anything, it had darkened. Awesome, you say? Aizawa's voice dropped an octave. The air around him seemed to grow heavier. You have 3 years to become a hero. Will you have an attitude like that the whole time? He let the silence hang there, suffocating the joy. All right. Whoever comes in last place in all 8 tests will be judged to have no potential. Aizawa pulled his lips back in a wide, terrifying grin. And will be punished with immediate expulsion. Yeah. The scream was collective. Expulsion? Uraraka cried out. On the first day? That's not fair. That's too unreasonable. Natural disasters, Aizawa said, brushing a strand of hair from his face. Highway pileups. Rampaging villains. Calamity is always unreasonable. Japan is covered in unfairness. It is the job of heroes to overturn those situations. If you wanted to go hang out at Mickey D's after school, too bad. For the next 3 years, Yui will run you through the ringer. He pointed a finger at them. Welcome to the hero course. Izuku swallowed hard. His throat felt dry. Expulsion. He looked at his hands. He was strong. He knew he was strong. He had torn apart robots made of reinforced steel. But this wasn't just about strength. It was about application. It was about control. And more than that, he was hungry. His stomach gave a low, menacing growl. He quickly reached into his pocket and palmed a cube of high-density nutrient gel, popping it into his mouth before anyone noticed. Fuel status, 65%. Let's get started, Aizawa said. Test 1, 50-meter dash. The track was pristine. Tenya Ida, the boy with the engines in his calves, was up first. He vibrated with efficiency. On your mark. Get set. Bang. Ida was a blur. His engines roared, blue exhaust flaring. He crossed the line in 3.04 seconds. Like a fish in water, Ajutsuyu, the frog girl, commented. Next up. Izuku Midoriya vs. Katsuki Bakugo. The rivalry was palpable. Bakugo stood in his lane, glaring at the track as if he wanted to blow it up. Izuku stood next to him, bouncing slightly on the balls of his feet. Don't you dare hold back, Deku, Bakugo hissed, not looking at him. I'm going to leave you in the dust. Izuku took a breath. He focused on his legs. Biomass compression. Fast twitch fibers. Ignore the safety limiters. He felt the virus respond. His leg muscles didn't expand outward, they tightened inward. The density of his muscle fibers tripled in a microsecond. The concrete under his sneakers cracked slightly under the sheer tension of his stance. Start! Bakugo exploded. He used his hands to blast himself backward, flying down the track. Izuku didn't fly. He launched. He drove his feet into the ground with so much force that he left 2 small craters in the starting blocks. He didn't run with a normal stride. It was a low, predatory dash, his body almost parallel to the ground to minimize wind resistance. He was a green bullet. He passed Bakugo at the 30-meter mark. Bakugo's eyes widened as he saw the green blur overtake him. What the? Izuku crossed the line. He skidded, his sneakers smoking as he tried to brake, tearing up a strip of the track. 3.01 seconds. Bakugo crossed a second later. 4.13 seconds. Bakugo stood at the finish line, panting, staring at the robot referee. He looked at his hands, then at Izuku's back. He's faster? Bakugo whispered. Without an explosion? Just running? Izuku turned around. He wasn't winded. His heart rate was barely elevated. But his legs felt hot. Good race, Kaken, Izuku said, his voice neutral. Bakugo grit his teeth so hard a vein popped in his forehead. He didn't say a word. He just walked away, his shoulders shaking. Test 2, grip strength. The class moved to the gym area. Mizo Shoji, the tall student with multiple arms, squeezed the digital grip tester. 540 kilograms. Wow! Mineta Minoru, the tiny boy with great balls on his head, squeaked. He's like a gorilla. An octopus gorilla. Izuku picked up the device. It felt like a toy in his hand. He looked at Aizawa, who was watching him like a hawk. Don't shift, Izuku told himself. If I turn my hand into a claw or a hammer fist, I'll scare them. Just use base strength. He squeezed. He didn't mean to overdo it. But his base strength was the result of a viral mutation that made his bones denser than steel and his muscles capable of lifting trucks. Crunch. A sickening sound of plastic shattering filled the air. Izuku looked down. The grip tester was gone. In his hand was a pile of gray dust, twisted metal springs, and a shattered LCD screen. Izuku froze. He opened his hand. The debris fell to the floor like sand. The class stared. Did he just turn it to dust? Shiro Hanta asked, his jaw dropping. What was the score? Kaminari Denki asked. I think the score was error, Jiro Kyoka deadpanned. Aizawa sighed, rubbing his temples. Midoriya. That comes out of your tuition. Sorry. Izuku bowed frantically. I didn't mean to. It was fragile. That was industrial-grade polymer, Aizawa noted dryly. Next, test 3. Standing long jump. This was where the black light truly shone. Izuku stood at the edge of the sandbox. He crouched low. Patagia, the virus whispered. Gliding membrane. Izuku focused on his arms and legs. Under his tracksuit, thin sheets of biomass extended between his torso and his upper arms, and between his legs. It wasn't a full transformation, just an adjustment. He leaped. He cleared the sandbox. He cleared the grass beyond the sandbox. He cleared the chain-link fence surrounding the pea grounds. He landed softly on the other side, 50 meters away. Is his quirk flying? No, he just jumped really far. Like a grasshopper. He's a monster, a boy with a tail, Ojiro muttered. A physical monster. Izuku walked back around the fence, dusting off his knees. He saw Aizawa making a note on his clipboard. The teacher didn't look impressed. He looked calculating. Test 4, repeated side steps. Mineta was the king of this one, using his bouncy balls to rebound back and forth at high speed. Izuku relied on pure agility. He moved so fast he blurred, creating afterimages. But he slipped once, his foot gauging a chunk out of the floor. Control, Izuku scolded himself. Stop breaking the school. Test 5, the ball throw. This was the main event. Uraraka went first. She touched the ball, making it weightless, and threw it. It floated up, and up, and up. Aizawa showed the screen. Infinity. Hacks. Kaminari shouted. That's cheating. It's efficient, Aizawa corrected. Midoriya, Aizawa called out. You're up. Izuku stepped into the circle. The sun was lower now, casting long shadows. The air felt cooler, but the heat inside Izuku's body was rising. He held the ball. He looked at the field. 705 meters was the score to beat. I can do it, Izuku thought. If I use the whip fist mechanics. I can stretch my arm, snap it like a rubber band, and launch the ball. He took a deep breath. Engaged biomass. Right arm. He felt the familiar, sickening, wonderful surge of the virus. The skin on his right arm bubbled. Black liquid seeped through the fabric of his uniform. His arm began to elongate, the bones softening to become pliable, the muscles twisting into high-tension cables. He wound up. Smash! He threw his arm forward. But just as he was about to release the ball, the feeling vanished. The surge died. The black liquid retreated instantly. His arm snapped back to its normal, human shape. The power cut out like a severed wire. The ball flopped out of his hand. It rolled pathetically across the grass. 46 meters. Huh! Izuku stared at his hand. What? He felt weak. Not tired but suppressed. It felt like someone had thrown a heavy, wet blanket over his soul. The virus inside him was thrashing, screaming, but it was locked in a cage he couldn't open. He looked up. Aizawa was standing there. His scarf was floating, defying gravity. His hair stood on end, and his eyes, they were glowing a piercing, bloody red. I erased your quirk, Aizawa said. The class gasped. Erase her head. Izuku realized aloud. The erasure hero. You can cancel quirks just by looking at them. Correct. Aizawa walked forward. He didn't walk like a teacher. He walked like an executioner approaching the block. From what I've been watching, Aizawa said, his voice low and dangerous, you can't control your quirk at all, can you? Izuku stiffened. I can. No, you can't. Aizawa cut him off. You break everything you touch. Equipment. Robots. Yourself. You rely on raw, overwhelming power because you lack the discipline to use it precisely. Aizawa stopped inches from Izuku's face. Izuku could see the bloodshot veins in the man's eyes. Do you intend to become incapacitated again and have someone save you? That's not it. Izuku protested, sweat beading on his forehead. I'm trying to learn. I saved that person in the exam, and you shattered your own body to do it, Aizawa snapped. If you hadn't had a healer nearby, you would be crippled. Or dead. Aizawa's scarf lashed out, wrapping around Izuku's torso and pulling him closer. Your power. It's not just a simple strength enhancer, is it? Aizawa whispered, low enough that the other students couldn't hear. I saw the medical reports from the entrance exam. Your blood work. Your DNA. Izuku's heart stopped.